What's going on, everybody? Welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding. I am not your host, Ron Partlow, because he's on an airplane right now. But we do have the producer, Scott McNally, and the guest that we could not possibly push back any further. I was getting death threats. We now have Duke and Stephanie from the Pawerful Rescue on the show. We have not been asked for many guests consistently other than you two. I get messages all the time, and I was like, all right, well, we got to force them into this, so we're glad you guys are here.
No, I'm stoked. Thanks for having us. Typically, unless we're not a big deal.
Hey,
Exactly.
Before we get into it, we got to remember one thing, Dusty.
Oh, yes, the thing that Ron does.
We have to like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell. That was very nice, Scott.
We had
well
a whole
done.
talk. We had a whole talk. Duke and Stephanie witnessed this. We had a whole talk about Dusty still wanted to say ring the bell. So we had to figure out how we were going to do this. And now I think it worked. I think we're good.
Yeah, well, last time I did the whole thing and I was uncomfortable. My bell hand was confused. Also, don't forget, everyone, supporters of the show, Mutant, IamMutant.com. This episode, please use Big Ron 20. Bring him back to us to save your 20%. But if you're certain it won't work or that your scoop of the protein will be at the bottom of the jug if you don't use mine, Dusty 20 does make sure that happens.
There you go.
So, guys, we wanted to bring you on because I have a lot, obviously, between the rescue and everything, and we will tie in the bodybuilding side because, obviously, one of the things that I kind of jam on with clients that I hear often is that they're very busy. And that's why they can't do this or can't do that. And I never, it's one of those things. It's like you don't compare traumas. I'm not saying that you're not busy or that your busyness isn't someone else's, but your guys is kind of next level. So I wanted to cover that, especially since Duke is officially 6 days out, 5.5 from a show right now.
Oh, no kidding.
And we drug him on. Yeah. So that's
okay.
A separate piece. And I was like, let's just throw one more thing in Duke's day to get this rolling. So I kind of wanted to get a quick breakdown, though, for those who don't know, about the rescue, what you guys do, when you started, why you started, kind of get us started with that.
Okay.
Go for it, it's your baby.
So the rescue organically started in 2018, where I was picking up stray dogs in South LA. That's where I lived at the time. And I couldn't leave my house without finding a stray dog. I mean, every time I would drive out of my neighborhood, it's like, well, there goes another one. Let's see if I can catch this one. And for an entire year, I was spending all of my own money. And it was about 30 dogs the first year of me just bringing a dog home, getting it vetted, trying to find a home, trying to find the owners. I think out of those 30 the first year, there was one owner that actually wanted their dog back.
Wow.
The other 89, they were like, no, you found it, or just drop it off where you found it. And after a year of doing that and seeing how much money was going into it, I was like, maybe I should file for a 501c3.
Well, I should say also, the first dog you took in cost you how much?
Well, no, that's when I officially started the rescue.
The first mama.
The first dog that I rescued from the South LA animal shelter, just like fresh, got the 501c3, got my pull rights at the shelter, was an English bulldog named Darla, who ended up costing like $7,000.
Oh.
And yeah, being the first dog, I immediately went into panic mode. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go broke. No one knew who the Pawerful Rescue was. No. And you have to build up kind of a reputation for people to trust you enough to send their hard-earned money and donate their hard-earned money. So, right off the gate, I was like, get me the most expensive dog. An English bulldog would do, So
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, that's how it started. It was 2018, and by 2019, I had established the 501c3, and I was able to get pull rights. And pull rights just means that you have a partnership with shelters where you tell them an ID number, and you kind of call dibs on that dog. You rent the dog, and so on and so forth. But it started just picking up stray dogs in South LA, and I think all of us have that one friend that always finds animals, or animals gravitate towards them. That's always been me as a child. My mom was so patient with me as a kid and teenager because I was constantly bringing animals home. So yeah, it just started organically. And then I realized how much money goes into it and that I should probably become some sort of entity so that people could help. And here we are 6 years later.
Yeah, still finding stray dogs. She still tracks them like magnets. It was actually last run, Dusty, in 22, the last show we did. We were like, "Is out." And she's coming back home, and she found, well, it was 3 or 4.
I was so nervous.
It was 3 stray dogs on the freeway. Yeah. And man, they were so feral. I mean, like, never seen a leash in their life, never been inside in their life. They were a blast, though.
Yeah.
Wait, so was this 3 separate dogs? Like you stopped and found one and then you found another, or you found 3 that were all together? I just need to know this to help wrap my head around how this went down.
With where we're at, too, we're in a rural area.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain back roads we already know that we can't go down.
Yeah.
Piggy got sick a few months ago. Ralph, we have a pig. We can dive into that later.
Oh
Don't
my
get
God.
It's the worst decision. Don't do it. But he got sick, so we were taking him to the only vet that would actually see a pig because they're so disruptive. Actually, most vets won't deal with them. But we ended up going down a back road. We know we should not have gone down. We found a mama husky who had 6 puppies at one time. We found 3 that were still alive. We ended up finding 4 other like stray Pyrenees, and that was just, I mean, literally one.
It was a quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
And it was 6 dogs, and I'm like, nope, we are never turning right. Going, and we're always making a left out of our house because if we turn right, we're gonna come home with another 6 animals, and
we're never gonna be able to run a rescue.
Yeah. So that's how it started.
So with that, because kind of the tie-in that I think is important with our followers as well, beyond the fact that they just love dogs, is how did you guys figure out how to build a following? Because I mean, that's something businesses do, individuals do, and in your guys' case, the only way you can do what you do was to create a following, create trust. So how'd you go about doing that?
I think both of our backgrounds really played a big role in that. I have a marketing background, and
I started in
marketing and managing background, and treating the rescue like a business.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the time people have bigger hearts than wallets in rescue, and they think they can just steal all the dogs. And that's not the case. A lot of rescues go under. A lot of rescues can't continue to perform and save animals because they don't have the funds. But from a marketing background, it's just
I mean, it is
showing
important.
face a lot.
And you have to realize that it has to be a priority. I know a lot of great rescues that do really, really good work, do things by the book, and they struggle. I mean, terribly. And I know a lot of shit rescues that are shady and don't do a good job, but are very good on social media and have massive followings. So you have to take it very serious. And I mean, really been operating 6 years, but up until 2 years ago, the rescue had a couple thousand people following. I had a couple hundred on my personal page probably a year ago before I decided to take that serious. I mean, all the pages are up over 200,000 now.
Yeah.
And the pro to that is obviously we're spreading awareness. We're able to share and showcase these types of dogs because they're certainly not for everyone. It's not the cute puppies, and friendly only or breed specific rescues that you usually will see. So, I mean, it definitely does matter, but man, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. It's just the consistency of posting on social media all of the time and showing our face so people see that there are humans behind the organization, which I think there's a lot of disconnect even with big companies when they don't have even like a spokesperson or they don't have humans behind the camera or in front of the camera, where you're telling a story and inviting people on this entire journey from start to finish. Hey, we just saw this dog pop up on Facebook at this shelter. We're going to go visit it now. Okay, we put in rights. Come with us to our first vet appointment. Come with us when we do a puppuccino at Starbucks, and so we invite people on this entire journey. And it's, kind of relating that to bodybuilding. I think pages that take off and followers start to watch a story is when people are prepping for a show or prepping for a photo shoot. It's like, oh, there's a whole thing. Like they're doing check-ins and people get wrapped up in stories. So we turn every dog that we're saving into a revenge tour.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, Aaron is obviously a massive part of it, showing your face, being accountable. And I obviously met Steph after she had the rescue going for a couple of years, and Pawerful Rescue is always and still does have a very good reputation in actual rescue community. Right. I mean, just we are very much by the book, even though it's off-putting at times to kind of your average person. because, there are so many steps and protocols and guidelines we have, but we're very transparent about how we go about that. And I think that goes a long way too. Funds, same thing. I mean, 501c3 funds, all that stuff is public information, and we encourage people to always look at that.
Yeah, you can look up any nonprofit. You can look up their tax returns at the end of the year and what their breakdown is and what they're spending their money on. So, it's, even though we're showing receipts for everything, we show receipts for every vet appointment, every major surgery, what we spend our money on. People can always go online and look at our tax returns and say, oh, okay, now I know what I'm donating towards.
Yeah.
That's enormously important, because it's funny, but Nikki's sister actually works for a different organization for helping kids that need food. And that was actually an argument we had at the table. We'll call it discussion, but because that was my issue, was like, okay, but where's the money go? Because I'm very big on that. And I think a lot of people are, and it's another reason I wanted to have you guys on the show. It's like, when I give someone who I physically see $50,
yep,
I know who got it. I don't know what they're doing with it. I honestly, at that point, it's okay. I did my thing, but I don't like finding out that my $50 had to cover this, and this, and then $3 was left for the child I was trying to help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that that's an important thing you guys point out, because it is important. Someone like us, I mean, I go down to finding a way when some of these places have a route where I'm like, is there a way I can give you cash? Like, I don't even want PayPal getting their touch. You know what I mean? It's like, how can I get as much to you as possible? Now, I know that's gray, but that's how I, as a donator, look at things. It's like, is there a way to do that? So it is very cool that you guys bring that up. I didn't even know that. I didn't know you could go look, and that's game changing.
Especially with dog rescue, right? Because it's such an emotional thing. We tell people all the time. I mean, we have 2 pups from a recent hoarding situation in Chandler, Arizona. Not going to go down the whole thing, because it's dark, twisty rabbit hole. But we ended up taking 2 of the dogs in from this lady posing as a nonprofit rescue. But with dogs, you have to understand that it's an emotional thing, and there are unfortunately people that will prey on your emotions. Like, people take advantage of that, and they will guilt you or throw a sad story in front of you and try and take money from you. So being educated, it's unfortunate that that's the world we live in, and you do have to verify who you're sending nonprofit or charitable funds to, but it absolutely is important, because there's a lot of shady people.
It's one of the reasons we never want to turn into a super large organization, is because at that point you have a ton of overhead, right? You have a ton of employees. We don't pay ourselves in the rescue. We're not on salary. Like, there's no money being transferred over to us. A lot of people will reach out like, oh, are you guys hiring? How much money do you guys make? And it's like, we make zero. We make zero money. That's how much.
Well, we lose money. I mean, the property too, and you guys have seen the setup we have. I mean, the property was personal funds, the yard set up. Yeah. I mean, even the clothing was going to be something, through the rescue, and we got that first receipt. And I was like, dude, like, people aren't donating to a project. Like, I'm not going to put, $8,000 of donated money into apparel that might not even make any money. So, I mean, everything is totally separate, and it makes it harder, but it's also nice because we've been able to use our business kind of background brains again on some fun stuff.
Right. So speaking of that, and I'm jumping all over the list I sent you guys, but I think people will get into this. Scott, I sent you a couple of pictures I wanted to kind of toss up. How did you guys get involved with the Texas Rangers? I mean, how does that happen with a rescue?
That was actually potentially your girl, Nova Gray.
Yeah, that's where the last name comes from.
Yeah. John and Jacqueline are obviously very busy people. John, for those of you who don't know, is a professional pitcher with the Texas Rangers and a stud. And his wife is a phenomenal human being. But she actually came across randomly a post of Nova Gray. It wasn't even the rescue page. It was my page. And then they both kind of went down the rabbit hole, found our rescue, and, I'm sure did their due diligence and homework. And they ended up sending her and a bunch of the pups a literal truckload of beds and supplies. And they reached out shortly after. But it's been such an amazing partnership. I mean, there's not a lot of big organizations or people in positions like they are who want to showcase the types of dogs we take in. I mean, we've had a lot of different opportunities. one of the biggest, actually, I won't say the name of the network, but it was a morning show, massive morning show that reached out, and they wanted to do a piece on one of our dogs. We hopped on the phone with the producer and kind of outlined, okay, but this is what we need to hit on. We need to talk about the amount of senior dogs that are being put down and started in shelters, shelter crisis. And I mean, this guy, like, point blank verbatim is like, that's not the story I wanted to tell, though.
Oh,
the happy 20-year-old dog that we had that had gone viral, and they just wanted to do a happy piece on this dog, and we were like, no, but there's a lot of 20-year-olds at the shelter that need help, and we want to spread awareness. And he's like, well, I'll get back to you guys.
I said, well, that's going to be a non-negotiable for us. So you talk with whoever you have to and let us know. And they never got back to us. But that's part of, again, in building your social media following platform. It's not bending on your morals. I know
right.
Sport too. It's the same thing in bodybuilding, fitness. You see people jump around company to company, or new trend after new trend, and I think life is much easier to live, and it's much easier to be on social media if you are truly yourself and you have a set list of beliefs, morals, values, whatever it may be that you live by. Right. And for us, you could look at it two ways. Like, well, maybe you should have bent a little bit because that was a massive opportunity to get the rescue scene on a massive, morning show. But to us, it's more than that. It's if we do that, then it makes it easier the next time to sacrifice those values again. I would rather be committed and, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is our goal, and we are not compromising. And I think that's really well.
So what exactly are we doing? I mean, I know I threw the pictures up, but what's the deal with the Rangers? What is that exactly?
So this is the second year that we've done the pet calendar, and they go on sale August 16th, which is their next Bark in the Park. And all of the proceeds will go back to the rescue. So they do the photo shoot, they print out the calendars, and they sell them on the MLB site and at the stadium, and the proceeds rescue. They actually linked up with the farmer's dog. The farmer's dog is going to cover the cost of the actual printing of the calendars. So the partnership is kind of open-ended. It's, we don't have anything written in stone with them. It's just like, hey, we have an event. You want to come along? Awesome. And they've, like, the whole organization has been so wonderful with us.
That's been really cool.
Everyone from, I don't know, the janitors to the head of their marketing department.
Guards.
Oh, I mean, everyone's just so lovely at the Rangers organization. So but it's nothing written in stone. It's just, hey, you want to come? You want to tag along for this thing? You want to do this thing? So they've been really awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I just love seeing that stuff, especially, I mean, like you guys said, in reverse. I mean, that's for a company to dive behind anything these days. We don't want to offend anyone. If you like dogs, you must hate cats, or, not even that you guys are just a dog, but that's the world. If I say I love red, then somebody goes, so you don't like yellow? I'm like, I didn't say that. So very, very cool. So we'll definitely link that just so people know when to look in August, because that's awesome to see that those things go on. And I just obviously I have a touch on where it came from, because that's phenomenal. Those who don't know, so when did you guys rescue Nova Gray exactly? Like 2 years ago, right?
August of 2022.
Yeah. So yeah, geez, the 8th of August. It was about 12:32, if I remember. I had just finished meal 3.
It was August 30th, but neither here nor there.
See, I called that. But the reason I point that out is because that went up, and just like, obviously I've known these two for forever. And Duke and I have worked together for years, and I've been following the page, and I see Nova go up, and I'm like, oh, why is this one hitting different? And I think I sent him an immediate text like, oh, what's going on here? But in life, I was looking at where I was, what was going on, my travel schedule, and not that she was even a possibility at that point. They had a lot of work to do, but I was like, I'm not the right person as much as I might love her. So skip past, and then years pass, and I actually sent recently, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, a little clip of her to the family, and I'm like, oh man, I still love this dog. And the only responses I get from the girls are, when are we going to get her? And then I'll walk her. She can stay in our room. I can do this. And I was like, and it's done. So with that, the reason I bring it up is one thing I loved is, again, knowing them for years, I reach out and I say, okay, is Nova adoptable yet? Is she's, already gone? What's the deal? Is she staying with you? And they didn't say, oh, sure, Dusty, you can have her. Mm-hmm. It was, here are the rules, and kind of get into how that works, you guys.
Yeah. And I mean, really up until, maybe one or two prior to the last 6 years, but there was the Tuttles, who Steph knew personally. And now we typically have a hard rule on not adopting to friends or family, because we get very, I can't use the C word on here. Very different. It's at this point, we always tell people we are advocates for the dogs. Yeah. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your following is. Right. We've had a lot of high profile people reach out who get upset, that they can't just have their dog flown out to them. And it's,
you can't drive your ass here. No.
So, it comes down to everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, we have our set list of procedures for this dog. And I will say, because you're following here, obviously, I know there's a perception of rescues where it's like, oh, rescues are so invasive and they want to do home checks and applications and references. So if you're not in the rescue world, you have to understand, if you guys have seen Nova, you've seen some of the dogs we've taken in. At some point, someone thought they were handing this dog over to a good family, a responsible person. The people that have abused these dogs, bred them to shit into the ground, dumped them at 16 years old with days to live, masses, terminal cancer, set them on fire, whatever it may be. At some point, somebody gave this dog to a person saying, they're good enough. They're a good family. So why in the world would we not do our homework? It's just part of it. So we do have our application process. You want to take it away? So
application process, we hop on a phone call. If the phone call goes great and everything checks out, they let me know what their day-to-day life is like, if they have resident dogs, if they have kids, what the play style is of their resident dogs. And if all of that sounds like it would be a good fit for the dog that they are applying for, we move forward with a home check. And if it's somewhere local in Texas, we do an in-person home check. If it's outside of Texas, or really a driving radius, we'll do a virtual home check. And I'll ask them to answer certain questions as they're walking me through the home check, because it's unfortunate. We've heard, it hasn't happened to us, but we've heard of other rescues that have asked for virtual home checks, and people have, used videos of an Airbnb that they had from a year ago.
Yeah, and it really? You have to line up, whether it's, your ID or mortgage payment, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's awful people that ruin it for everyone. But we do the virtual home check, and then we do an in-person meet and greet. And the in-person meet and greet, it's obviously a lot easier if it's just the dog and the humans. But if there's little kids involved or other dogs involved, then there's a whole process of us going on a walk together and slow introductions and handing treats and all that. Then we send the family off. We tell them take 24 hours. We don't want this to be a super, a rash decision, because you're here with the dog and it's super cute. And, we want families to have a discussion about it.
I was going to say, especially families with kids.
Right.
Because it's happened a lot. And it's a good thing. Like Dusty not being in a position originally to take a Nova Gray, that's the responsible thing to do. We want people to actually think this through and make sure they're in a good spot. And it happens a lot where family comes over with young kids and, oh man, can we just take her today? Can we take her today? We're 100% on board. And the next day it's like, reality sets in, dopamine drops a bit. And it's like, oh man, well, my kids have soccer and this. And it's like, guys, just not the right time. And that's okay.
Right.
But that's why we do that meet instead of just, you're in an emotional place handing you this dog.
Right.
But after that, let's see, we have trial run, which for in-state is 10 days, out-of-state is 30 days. You don't have to use all 10 days, If after 4 days in, it's like, dude, everything's perfect. This is my dog. We send over all the paperwork, our adoption contract, transfer the microchip. We do remain a secondary on the microchip just in case, something happens. So we're always notified so our dogs don't end up back in a shelter. And then during the trial run, it's worth noting too, because it's something I think a lot of rescues should do. We provide all the supplies. So that's all part of donations. It's what we do as a rescue. So when you start your trial run, you get crate, beds, bowls, toys, treats, food, flea, tick, and heartworm, everything you need for those 10 to 30 days. That's all included, just so the dog's set up for success there. And then we do have a trial run agreement contract, which is just a set list of rules and guidelines. We always tell people there's one in there that people, I mean, there's a lot that people laugh at. But unfortunately, if it's in there, it means somebody at some point has done it. So we have one in there about not sticking your child in the crate with the dog. And that had happened probably 4 years ago. 4 years ago, yeah. We had like 100-pound lowrider pitty, who thank God was the sweetest thing on the planet, yep. Hank the Tank.
Yep.
Yeah. And we went over all the rules, all the guidelines. We pull out. We're like 3 minutes down the road, and we get a picture of their 3-year-old son locked in the crate with this brand new dog they just met.
Oh, God.
And I was like, dude, oh, my God. Like, you hear these stories, and it happens with pits a lot, which is part of why they get a bad rep. And it's not pits. It's people, you know, I mean, pits are a very commonly owned dog, and people get them from shelters, and it's not always the brightest people. But you put a dog in a spot like that, I mean, sweet dog, but what happens if, you know, the kid pulls his ear or pokes his eye or somebody rings the doorbell? It's humans constantly putting dogs in bad spots. So trial run agreement is just to make sure, you know, maybe the people that aren't as bright about things have some guidelines.
You guys should consider an IQ test. Anyways, separate note, but I really do think it should be illegal for there to be doorbell ringing in television commercials. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Anyways, that happens at my house. I don't know about you, Scott.
We have a new Ring doorbell, and I've had to unplug it like 4 times, and each time I've reset it, it's been set to a different doorbell ring, so Maddie doesn't even know, because she hasn't gotten adjusted to it yet. And by the time that she figures out, like, oh, that's the doorbell, it's probably going to get unplugged and replugged in and rechanged again. So,
well, I tried that with my first dog, my personal dog, Thea, who lives with my ex and her boyfriend now. But we were in an apartment, same thing. I switched all of the doorbells and notifications to my phone, so I'd get a phone call.
Yeah.
It was a great idea. And the first 2-3 years of her life, no matter where we were at, she would lose her shit every time my phone rang.
Oh, no kidding.
That's funny. So see, I don't know how they figure this out though, because no one comes to our door. And I lived in condos before where I don't let people come to my house. That's just, well, why are you here? Call me. Actually, don't call me, text me. But like, so I don't even know how they understand doorbell means run to door. So anyways, we're derailing, but I do want it to become illegal. When I'm king of the world, that will change.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. So, but anyhow, on that note with you guys, a couple other things I want to cover on just the side of the rescue is what are things, because this is something I've had people asking me about since bringing up Nova Gray. It's like they want to be involved. Obviously, money side's great. But if they don't have that, like what are some great things people can do, you know, sharing stories, you know, when you guys travel the one time every 7 years, like how do people get into helping in those ways and not just for you guys, but for other shelters that you suggest advising? Cause that's something I had people say too, like, oh, you're going to Texas. There are rescues in South Carolina. I'm like, I'm aware that's not about the rescue. It's the dog. She called me. It's not on me. So what are some things people can do? Because I know that is a huge thing we get a lot of.
Yep. I think, you know, a lot of people get caught up on, oh, I can't donate.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do anything. You know, I'm not paying it forward in that sense. But there is fostering. If you can't foster, you can volunteer at a shelter. If being in the kennels is too sad for you, because we get that a lot, like I can't walk into a shelter, it's too depressing. You know, you can, if you're good taking pictures, you can go to a shelter and have them bring out dogs so that you can photograph the dogs so that they have better exposure instead of the scared intake photo that some person by desk takes. You know, volunteering for a rescue by doing events, adoption events, transporting, sharing it on your social media, like creating a platform where you're networking these dogs. You don't even have to step foot in a shelter, really. You can just grab videos that the volunteers are taking and posting it on social media, because sometimes that's how we see dogs for the first time is on Instagram, because someone, you know, caught a clip of a dog and now the ID number is circulating and people are tagging our rescue. And so, there's so many different ways that you can get involved where you're not even stepping foot in a shelter if that's not your thing.
Yeah.
But, if you have hopes of one day, because that's the most commonly asked question for us is, oh, I want to do what you guys do. How do I start a rescue? Step foot in a shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Foster a dog. Volunteer with a rescue organization to see the types of dogs that you want to take on.
I tell people this a lot.
They romanticize it.
I used to answer everyone that would ever ask that, and it's in 4 or 5 years, one person's actually gone through with it, which is one. It's a good thing and a bad thing with following growing. I think people see a big following, they see the events we're doing, they see the build out. And people assume that we're just raking in massive annual salary, that we had all of the property stuff funded, that the ranger events and the TV stuff just fell into your lap, and they don't realize the process and the steps that go into it. Mm-hmm. And in reality kind of clicks. I mean, nobody wants to do it, and that's okay. This is not for everyone. I try and hammer this in a lot. Like, running a rescue, donating, fostering, all great things, but it's not for everyone, and it doesn't make you any less of a dog lover than us if you choose not to do it. There's a lot of different sacrifices that go into each thing. So, I mean, before I even start that conversation with people, it's always, unless you have volunteered for a rescue for a year, unless you have volunteered at a shelter, walked a shelter, and fostered multiple dogs and rotated crates for at least a year, I can't even start that conversation. Because it's, you guys talk about it too, like there's levels to this, you know what I mean? It's not just jump in and you're going to have this massive success you see. Because like I said earlier, there's a lot of great rescues I know that are, going under, gone under, not successful. I mean, just because you take in this neglected or abused dog and rehabilitate them, that doesn't entitle you to anybody's hard-earned money or support. It doesn't entitle you to people's time. I mean, some of the most extreme medical cases before and after transformations were 5-6 years ago when nobody was following us. It's a massive body of work, and I think people assume, like, I have this sad dog in front of me, everyone is going to support me, everyone has to support me. That's not how life works.
Well, I think I want to also add, and this I do try to tie things in, not just the rescue, but again, social media, businesses, things like that, is the word success. Okay, mm-hmm. Because same thing when we were looking at adopting Nova, like, again, we're going from 2 little rat dogs to adding a bigger dog in. Now the whole conversation is different, but it's also not just like, now I'm like, what are we going to be doing in 5 years? Mm-hmm. Because now when we travel, like, anybody's ready to take a couple Yorkies. I got 900 people that are like, I'll watch your dogs. Yep. And it's like, okay, not only is it a bigger dog, but she's also been through a lot. So I can't just be like, hey, random person, watch Nova for the weekend, So, and same thing goes with the success of the business. Like, when you guys say success, I want to remind everyone, no money comes in to you guys, even at that point. So success actually means rescuing more dogs. It means more heartbreak. It means more of all the other things that people don't see. I mean, I can tell you right now, I couldn't do what you do because I would fall in love with all 30 or whatever dogs you have right now, and they would all stay with me and I would go broke. Because I couldn't do it. Like, fostering would never work for me. I mean, I'll watch someone's dog for the weekend and I'm like, wait, you want your dog back? That's ridiculous. She's been playing with my dogs, so I just think people need to understand that, because just like business success, it's very easy to look at what we perceive to be the success. Like you said, we're talking about building out an area. It's like, that's money going out, not coming in. Even if it's coming in to fund it in some ways, nothing ever lands into, Duke's new watch collection. And, like, you know what I mean? The reason that doesn't exist is because of these things. So I just want people to kind of keep that in mind during this conversation, is success for them is helping more people, saving more dogs. And that's really tough. Like, I see the cases you guys take on, and some of them right from jump, you guys know, like, this probably isn't going to go well. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a good point too, because I laugh when people talk about success, or somebody mentioned legacy a couple days ago on a post we had, and I was like, honestly, I don't give a shit about a legacy. Like, I could give 2 shits if anyone remembers my name 50, 60 years from now, as long as the dogs are in a better spot. And that's really what it is. I mean, you could look at the following. I mean, we've gone up 150, 200,000 followers the last 2 years. And it doesn't mean a thing because I still feel like we're not
doing enough.
I mean, we've been able to help more dogs. I think last year we rescued 104 at the end of it. But I mean, you know, we're already like, we're jumping back on the YouTube, like we were talking about with Dusty, getting the clothing line going, you know, and other things, because we want to really push rescue and make it something that's mainstream, because that's the only way I think we're going to be able to have the impact that we want for these dogs.
Right.
You know, the two of us personally fostering 30 to 40 dogs year round, you know, if we could rescue 104, 200 dogs a year, that's great. But it's not the impact we want to have. We want to actually have some substantial, serious change in the way things are done. You know, it sounds like a fairy tale idea, but, you know, try and really end the shelter crisis and what's going on right now. So,
yeah,
you know, success is subjective.
So with that, it's a question I threw to you guys. And Scott, I didn't show you any of these questions, sorry. But do you try to use, is it a goal to use your platform to kind of help change like dog legislation as far as laws on abuse, abandonment, breeding issues? Is that a goal? Is that something you're like, how does that factor in? Because I look at it from the outside, and we haven't even discussed this, but it's like, when I look, you know, this is a problem that if you don't get to the source, you can't beat. You know what I mean? So is that something you and other rescues try to work together? I mean, how's that work?
So from a legal standpoint, nonprofits can't get involved in legislations and legislative. So,
which I understand to an extent. I'll say that.
Yeah, from like a financial standpoint, right? We can't use donor funds to then push our own personal agenda.
Politicians could have more meetings, though.
Yeah, neither here nor there. But
no.
But to your point, there are organizations that are working towards that. So it's one of the reasons that we kicked Duke off the board of the rescue.
I'm free. I can say whatever I want.
So he's a free agent. He doesn't. He's just a verified volunteer of the rescue.
Yep. I just pick up shit all day.
Literally.
His name is nowhere on any government official document regarding the Powerful Rescue. So it's something that we wanted to do so that if he did want to get involved with, you know, going to city board meetings and representing just rescue in general, he can do that. But he can't do it as a representative of the Powerful Rescue.
Right.
But to your point, yeah, the problem lies with overbreeding. Even though there are laws in place, most states, the law is that all animals, all dogs and cats, must be spayed and neutered by 6 months of age. That is the law. That's the law here in Texas. That's the law in California. That's great when you have a law, but no one's enforcing it. You know, so
well, it's the same thing with the animal abuse law. I mean, animal abuse is a felony.
Yeah.
But I mean, Dusty, you know, and I don't know how many of your followers are following us, but you see some of the dogs we take in, Rami and Michelle being recent ones. I mean, unless to get animal, I can tell you, we've rescued over 600 dogs at this point. If you guys flip through our pages, you'll see the condition they're in.
Yeah.
I can count on one hand how many owners have actually been charged and prosecuted, unless it's on film, animal cruelty sees it happen. And then they can go to the shelter, get the dog seen by the shelter medical staff, and the medical can determine, yes, exactly what you saw in that moment caused this dog's injury, and the injury killed the dog. Animal abuse doesn't happen. There are so many steps that go into it. I mean, Dusty, I sent you a picture. We can't share it because it's you know, someone's property now, but you saw objectively that dog not well cared for, yes?
Oh, yeah. Terrible. That was an anger one. Go ahead.
Because, you know, I mean, for the shelter, and it's not an excuse, we're trying to work with them.
Right.
But, you know, in their head, it's like, how are we going to prove that the owners did this? Because the owners could turn around and say, oh, well, the dog's been gone for 5-6 months. We haven't seen him. Or, oh, I don't know how exactly it's happened. Like, you know, there's not enough funding from the government for separate divisions to investigate this stuff. Right. No different than Nova or dogs we've had that have been a worse case than Nova. In their head, it's like it's a waste of money. for us to try and go prove this. So unless we see it and we could prove it very clear cut, we're just moving on. And it's unfortunate, but it's become a numbers game. I mean, Dallas Animal Shelter, and mind you guys, this is just one shelter. The last year and a half, 2 years, they put down $300 to $400 a month. And I mean, a lot of healthy adoptable dogs, like you walk through that shelter and it's 2-3-year-old German Shepherds and Pits, and it's good, normal adoptable dogs, and they just don't have the room. So that's why spaying and neutering is so important. I know people get all, oh, sorry, I caught myself. They get
that was close, Ron.
They get all, you know, in their feels about it. Like, oh, I would never take my dog's manhood. Like, dude, if I told you you could never have sex again for the rest of your life, about a weekend, you'd be a little agitated. About a month in, you'd be really worked up. 6 months, a year in, you're going to be an absolute mess. Like, it is a kind thing to do to not alter your dog. And
all that, you have all that buildup testosterone in there, and you don't have an outlet for it. You're going to become an agitated animal. And a lot of people like to use, you know, the science backing, which has literally changed so much over the years. It's like, well, you got to wait until the dog has its first heat for a female, and you have to wait until the dog is fully developed at 2 to spay and neuter. There's a handful of people that we know personally that I would trust with a dog that is unaltered for 2 years.
And that's the thing. We have had, I mean, I know people that have done that successfully with hardcore working dogs, like people doing bite work, tactical training work, like with Mama Lo, the Malpups we took in. Paulina, shout out to her. She's a IFBB Pro bikini competitor, one of the best adopters we've ever had.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Which is crazy to me because she had no experience with Mals. The rest of our adopters for that litter were current military, ex-military, law enforcement. And then there's little India that was bugging the shit out of us for like 4 months. And she ended up being awesome. But you know, with a dog like that where, you know, they're going to be unaltered longer to develop for that kind of training, everyone thinks they're John Wick. You guys aren't John Wick. Like, very few of you can actually handle that. I've seen it happen. It's every day on Nextdoor rehoming pages, Facebook, like, oh, my dog's 2, and out of nowhere, they're out of control. They're fighting. I have to get rid of them. Are they fixed? No. And it's every day, dozens of people a day. So, like, it is a lot more work than people realize. I don't know. It's the safer thing to do, safer to avoid accidents, because, again, there's just litters everywhere, dogs being put down, and, you know, talking ethics is difficult, and it's a much longer conversation. But I mean, just as a whole, guys, get your dogs fixed, get them vetted. It's the better play. Trust me.
Nice. So I don't want to lock you guys in here too long, like I said, but I did want to cover one thing that it's not even really just for the rescue, but just in general, because something that drives me crazy. So I'd like some expert locks on this and things to kind of maybe help people when they're making a decision to take on any animal. I do not like I don't go on Facebook much for anything at all anymore other than buying things on Marketplace, but I will not go on in December because that's when dogs become gifts. And I know how that works. You know, I mean, if I told a 5-year-old, do you want a puppy?
Of course.
I know the answer.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't feel like people look past it. So what are some things that you guys suggest that people look at and think about when they're about to make that decision, even if they've had dogs? Like, what are some things that you say, like, hey, take down this list of X amount of things to really run through your mind before you make the decision? Because like you said, it is emotional. It's very easy to look at, like for me, Nova, oh, she was lit on fire. I'll take care of her. It'll be great. But that's, like you said, that's here, you know, and that you mean well, but it's, you know, hopefully she lives one day longer than me and we're perfect. Yeah. That's a deal I make with every dog I've ever had. We have a conversation. I say, listen, if I die on this day, you can die later that afternoon, but you can't die before me. Anyways, no one has kept up to their side of the deal. But what are some things that you guys can list off to kind of close up this episode that people should think about when they're really ready to pull that trigger to make sure that they've kind of run down it all and they're ready?
I mean, I think people sometimes get stuck on a look of a dog. I want a Doberman with cropped ears. I want, a XL Pitty. I want a fluffy Frenchie. They're stuck on a look because it means something from a societal standpoint. Like, oh, I have this dog. It means I am this type, right? Mm-hmm. Get past what the dog looks like. Let's take a look at what your lifestyle is like. Are you working from home? Do you work in an office? Do you have kids? What is your schedule like? Are you a runner? Are you active? Are you a homebody? All of those things. It's like a dating app. Write all of the things about your lifestyle, your personality traits, things that you like to do on the weekends, and then try to find a dog that's going to fit that lifestyle. Instead of getting a high working breed dog, we're seeing a ton of cattle dogs right now at the shelter because they're the perfect size dog. They're like 35 pounds. Most apartments will take them because of how small they are, except people don't realize that they are a working breed dog that they love to nip. So we see a ton of those dogs coming into the shelter because they nipped a toddler that was running. The dog didn't hurt the toddler. It saw something running. It was like, hey, come back here, and nipped the toddler.
Yeah.
Take a dog's, personality traits, things that are innate to that breed, that's in their DNA, and see if it fits into your lifestyle. Because if you're buying a dog as a gift for someone, that needs to be a family conversation any time of the year. Screw Christmas, but
except for us.
Except for us, we're picking up a dog at 2:00 today. But it's a family discussion because ultimately, when you're getting a dog for kids, it's going to be the parents that take care of the animal. It's a 5-10-year-old, even a 15-year-old. Like, yeah, they're going to help, but the parents are going to be the ones that are responsible because that 15-year-old's probably going to move away soon. And then you're going to be left with this animal. So, write down what your lifestyle is like, what you want out of a dog, and then find a dog that fits into your lifestyle instead of trying to, morph this animal to fit something that it's not meant to be.
Yeah.
Because there's innate DNA traits that you're not going to be able to train out of some animals.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just statistical standpoint, the 2 busiest days of the year for shelters, 4th of July, the day after Christmas. That is the day the most dogs come into the shelter.
Wow.
Humans are irresponsible. It is what it is. So, I mean, you do have to really think about your lifestyle. And I can say this too, doing this now for as long as we have, I think people vastly underestimate the connection you can form with a dog when it's truly the right fit for you and it's not something that's an aesthetic.
Right.
I mean, we've taken in a handful of dogs, and I can tell you some of the dogs I've been the closest with, I've had zero, aesthetic connection with the breed, like at all. Audrey being a King Corso, that was Audrey we lost, which was a really rough one after she was adopted, but just a phenomenal connection that I formed with her over the 1.5, 2 years that she was in our care there, and it had nothing to do with how she looked. Like, there was nothing really from a temperament or DNA standpoint that I would have ever gone out and looked for in a dog. It's just like Nova Gray. There's certain dogs that when it hits you different for whatever reason, and they get in your care, and that's why we do the trial run, so you can feel if you have that connection. But dogs like that, it's just different. Like, you're never going to be able to replicate that kind of connection. And dogs have this unreal ability for just, or capacity for unconditional love that just nothing else on this planet has. And when you actually form that connection, you can give that to a dog and you get it back. It's different. It's the same thing with behavioral dogs we take in. We have Anakin right now who has some serious behavioral issues. We've had worse, or Simba, who's human aggressive. He actually took a chunk out of Steph's rib cage the day we went to pick him up. And it was probably a month of him trying to literally kill us before we were able to earn his trust. And I could tell you, there's not a dog in this house I trust with my life more than Simba.
Yep.
I mean, it's just, I'm not telling people, do not go get a behavioral dog. That's not what I'm saying. But it's not always, oh man, I've always wanted a gorgeous cropped ear Dobie. That's that's not what's really going to fulfill you. I promise you, if you really, consider your lifestyle, or you go through rescue and you do a trial run,
Right.
and you form that connection, that bond that way, through trust, mutual respect, stuff like that. It's just different. And I do almost feel bad for people that'll never experience that because they're hung up on a certain look.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
Well, and what we've told some people that have reached out about, I love Huskies or I love Belgian Malinois, and they've never owned a breed like that. Foster that breed. Reach
Right. Yeah.
and foster a Husky, and let me know if you think that they're singing or they're screaming.
It's
because
screaming.
Husky people
I'll
call
answer
it
that right
singing.
now. It's screaming. It's not singing.
Well, I think that's important though, because, we just had Chris Tuttle on last week,
Yeah.
and I asked him how he became the dog father. And he actually explained the fact that he always thought small dogs were useless. There was no reason to have one. And then he fell in love with the one that he and his ex had, to the point that it was the only thing he wanted when the relationship ended. And he was willing to give up a house to make that happen. And, so that was a prime example. I get it all the time when I've got the dogs out, and they'll see me with Donna out on a leash by myself, and they're like, so that's your wife's dog? And I'm like, no, actually I had the dog before I had the wife. Actually used the dog to get the wife. I'm kidding. But no, I think it is important, one of those things. So I'm really glad you guys came on. I know we didn't cover anything I wanted to because I couldn't let go of these things. But we are going to tag, because I know you guys don't have it finalized currently, what the name of your YouTube that's already running will be under, but we will put it in the caption. So if you guys want to follow along, see more stories with the dogs, things going on with the rescue, how to donate, how to do different things. Obviously, you guys are going to have the YouTube up. What is the Instagram, which we'll also put below? What's that now?
Powerful Rescue.
Yeah, say the Powerful Rescue with a paw. I know everyone struggles to say that. It seems like a good idea at the time. So PAWERFUL Rescue. We have Steph Rod Fit, Duke Hemstreet.
That's it.
And yeah, that's it. There are a bunch of fake Duke Hemstreet accounts. So if it's
Kidding me.
We'll do it in the bio.
He's famous now, so people,
I think it's
grab his
disgruntled.
videos
I think it's
and
disgruntled.
No,
people.
I think people are his videos of him, because I'm just like background. It's always like when stories get picked up, it's like Duke Hemstreet saves dogs, and I'm like, what am I, chopped liver?
Yeah.
Duke is a savior. I love it. We get the same at my house in other ways, so don't worry, Steph. You're not the only one. Meanwhile, she's like, he wouldn't even know how to get where he's going if I didn't buy the tickets.
Right.
Zero chance. This rescue would absolutely fall apart without stuff. Like the dogs know when Dad does feeding time, because it's their dry kibble and no supplements. Steph has wet food.
I
and
have
there's
supplements
turmeric
and all their
bites and
meds,
fish oil and
their turkey tail. Like, it looks like a gourmet meal, and if for whatever reason I'm not in the kitchen making meals, it's just like a
mine's
scoop of kibble.
a mixed assortment of kibble.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Where's Mom?
Hey, he does that for you, Steph. Since the humans all give you credit, Duke, he wants the dogs to give it to you. Well, thanks again, guys, for coming on. I know that I've had a lot of people waiting. So for those who have stuck around to the end, again, remember, check out all their stuff and look locally as well. I mean, the point of this was not just this rescue, but just getting people out and understanding. And if you are ready to get a dog, definitely look at the rescues. And that's coming from a guy. I have 2 full-bred Yorkies. I'm not one of those people that's like, only way to do it. But I do think that you should, when I look now, I'm thinking I can't imagine these 2 anywhere but home. And that makes me realize there's a lot of dogs that need that. And I want to make that happen.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on real quick, just with that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with, necessarily going that route, as long as you're vetting the mom and the person, right? I think a lot of people get like emotional, thinking rescues are going to judge and attack, and that's not at all the case. If you're a responsible dog owner, and I've said this before, if the only thing you take away from the work we do is you stay with your dog and care for them as family from the moment they enter your life until the moment they leave this world, I don't give a shit. That is what I want. I'm so sick of seeing senior dogs being surrendered, abandoned, neglected on their last days, stepping in trying to make them feel okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
It hurts. Dogs understand. It's senior dogs every day that we're taking in that have been abandoned by their families, and they might not have even had a great life with them, but that 17-year-old dog misses their family in the end. It's not us they want. They want their dogs are like that. So if that's the only thing you take away, that's all I care about.
Right.
I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that. And having just lost my dog, our pit bull earlier this year, I feel like there were so many lessons that I learned in caring for her through her entire life to the time that she was a senior. You know what I mean? It's just like, I feel like dogs can teach us so much at all their stages of life. I didn't have her since she was a puppy. She was adopted at about 6 months old. In fact, hold on, guys. I'm gonna.
Yeah,
I got a bunch of pictures on my desktop.
Bring her on.
This is Betsy when she was probably about 6 months, 7 months old, somewhere like that. And she grew up to be a great dog. But I feel like pit bulls are so misunderstood. She
100%.
had this dog, let me tell you, she annoyed me at times because she had so much energy. And she was just just like a strongly driven dog. She'd get she became like she tested my patience, put it that way. But I learned a lot from her. And then as she matured, after she was like 2-3 years old, she started like changing, getting really like just more laid back. And the older she got, the sillier she got. And she taught me to like be silly too. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know. You just learn so much from it breaks my heart to think of like abandoning her in that time, because I know that she would never in her life abandon me. Like was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we had Melvin was 20 or 19?
20.
We had a 20-year-old senior that had been with the family for 20 years. They remembered because they noted that they got him for their daughter's birthday, 20 years ago. But we offered them medical help. We offered to pay for in-home euthanasia. If it was in fact his time, they declined all of it. And literally he was put in a big Tupperware box and dropped off at the shelter. It's unreal. And I mean, that's really early on into my life, at least, what I think made me gravitate towards senior dogs. Like you said, Scott, learning was lost a family dog that we had at a young age. And it was something that really stuck with me for years. You know what I mean? I just assumed everyone went through that. Like I remember his last days. I remember the weeks leading to it, how he acted. And, you grow up thinking, oh, well, everyone takes care of their senior dogs and they all live with their family and it's this beautiful thing. And then it's like, oh, no, that's not at all how this works. That's part of, I think, what, had me gravitate towards Steph's Rescue in the first place was a lot of those senior dogs. Definitely a special thing. I know it's hard, but just don't leave them, man. Like you cannot imagine how hard it is on them. I mean, you go walk some local city shelters and stuff. Yeah,
that's a shot.
This was one of her last good walks to the park. We could still take her around the block for a while. Her hips were getting pretty bad at this point, but she had that little vest on, and with that vest, I could scoop her up to put her in the car, and then we could go straight to the park, and she could go walk through the woods there. And we are so happy because this is before we found out that she had cancer, bone cancer. And this is before we found that out, and she was still healthy enough to go walking. And this was like her ultimate best day, like a day that she could go to the park. And we were so happy that we could give that day to her.
I like how that black
the
patch turned to gray.
Oh yeah.
That's adorable.
Yeah, there's definitely things that just it does blow your mind, like you guys said, because I think in opposite terms than most people. Like if somebody said, hey, you can have another puppy, I'm like, I'd rather swallow a knife. But it's not to say that you're not aware of other behavioral issues that adopting you're going to find out about. But it's just, for me, it's the time of life. And again, that's back to my drive and wanting to do this a lot of times, was just get people to think about, again, what fits into your life, what works out, where are you at? I mean, I joke about it all the time at home, but it's like I never wanted kids and I never had to have them because I came in when they were 15 and 17. And I'm like, perfect.
Yeah.
They're like mini me's, and this is the only time where I can actually shine because I don't want to do the stuff when they were little,
Right.
And it's the same with dogs. Now it's like I've told Nikki I never will, and we will have dogs till I'm gone. Probably multiple. The bigger the house and yard gets, the more dogs I will have. But they will all be 1+ years old when I bring them in moving forward. Like, I'm not ready for that phase,
Well, just even when you're old and gray, hopefully we've expanded our seniors rock program out to your area. Brainchild. If you guys haven't seen the rock program, we're up in Dallas right now. We pair senior dogs with senior citizens. The dogs legally remain under our rescue, so we cover all costs. You're assigned a volunteer, so we take care of vet appointments, grooming appointments. But it's been a really cool thing for senior citizens because it's obviously a very serious concern. What happens if I have a medical emergency and I can't care for this dog? There's a lot of senior citizens that don't want to bother. Friends, family don't have a support system around them.
Yeah. Or they're on
or on fixed income.
They can't afford to go to a vet appointment or get the dog groomed. So all of our senior citizens that we've placed dogs with live by themselves. They can independently care for themselves, but they are alone in an apartment. And the dogs that we've placed with them, they're like, we have a reason to get up in the morning and go for a short walk to take our dog out to go potty. And it's like when we started getting that feedback, it was just it's what we wanted. It was so fulfilling. So right now it's just in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we're hoping to expand, but
if you guys are in, or you have grandparents,
so once you're gray and old, Dusty, we'll send you a dog. We'll take care of it. Don't worry.
So like 7-8 months. Got it, because the gray's coming quick. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining us. I'm super stoked you guys did that. Looking forward to fanning out and actually doing all the YouTubes, because I've already watched the ones you have up. So that's just me. I don't really consume bodybuilding content. It's boring. So I go into other things. But again, thank you guys for joining us. And for those who want to check them out, Scott's going to put the links, and obviously check out the pages, the rescue, donations, all of the above. So appreciate you guys.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
And remember, IamMutant.com. You can use code BigRound20.
You should use that one this episode. Or
Dusty20.
Also
use Dusty20. And don't forget, what are the products that Ron always mentions? He says, what does he say? He says, I know he says all in, right?
Yep, you need the all in. Get the ISO Surge, and
ISO Surge. That's right. And
everyone should be on the gear, which is true. My kids are on the gear, but anyways, it is what it is. All right, everybody. Thanks again, and remember, it's just bodybuilding.